Welcome to Semiosis 101 Season 2's fourth semiotic video. If you've watched Semiosis 101 videos before, then you'll already know I am Dave Wood. Season 2's semiotic theme is a semiotic Rosetta Stone, which is a metaphor to the unlocking and designer-centric translation of Charles Sanders Peirce's semiotic theory of semiosis, sign action. Why do you need Semiosis 101? Peirce's writing and terminology is very obtuse. In the first 5 Season 2 videos, I am dispelling confusion as to what semiotic signs are. Last week, we discussed applying semiosis on a daily basis. This week, I engage in the first Semiosis 101 semiotic book review of 5 semiotic books that help me understand semiosis and how designer-centric are they. Why semiotic books don't tell you how to. Hit subscribe and I'll explain. In this episode, we take a slight change of pace into our first Semiosis 101 book reviews with a difference. I am keen to share some of the semiotic books that help me begin to make sense of Peirce's theory of semiosis and semiotics in general. I want to share these books partly to demonstrate that semiotics in visual communication design, graphic design, and illustration is more than an abstract thought exercise after the fact. I will also demonstrate the need for future semiotic books to be published in designer-centric language relevant to designers and illustrators. On my first Semiosis 101 semiotic resource Substack, I have an annotated reading list of over 50 semiotic books. From this reading list, I have chosen 5 books to review. The URLs to buy the review books are in the YouTube description below. The 5 semiotic books I've chosen are This Means This, This Means That, A User's Guide to Semiotics by Sean Hall, Visible Signs, An Introduction to Semiotics in the Visual Arts by David Crow, Semiotics, The Basics by Daniel Chandler, Peirce, A Guide for the Perplexed by Cornelis, Waal, An Introduction to Peircean Visual Semiotics by Tony Chappie. In this review, over the next 10 minutes, I will quickly outline the importance of each book and how I personally benefited from each book. I will expand on my annotations in the Semiosis 101 Substack annotated semiotic book list. This list is a Substack subscriber download. The URL is in the YouTube description below. Finally, I will then conclude with what we need from future semiotic books as creatives, as visual communicators, as illustrators, and as designers. So let us begin with the first semiotic book on explaining the fundamentals of semiotic theory to visual people. This Means This, This Means That, A User's Guide to Semiotics by Sean Hall. Hall's book was one of the first books I bought on semiotics around 2009. In 2009, I was in a new lecturing position and I found myself being asked to teach several classes on semiotics to undergraduate designers. As a practicing illustrator between 1991 and 2001, I knew I had engaged in semiotics, but this was only tacit knowledge. To teach semiotics, I needed to quickly understand semiotics. Hall's excellent book provided me with both the visual examples of how semiotic signs work, plus the explanations of how semiotic theory works. It provided me with the basics to teach a basic semiotics class, but I knew there was more to understand. The second book review this week is Visible Signs, An Introduction to Semiotics in the Visual Arts by the late David Crow. This illustrated book is a general semiotic theory reader. The visual arts is a bit of a giveaway. Crow's book covers a broad range of semiotic theory, including Peirce. I had the fortune to be asked by Bloomsbury Publishing to review Visible Signs to help update the 4th edition, which unfortunately was to be his final edition as he sadly passed away in 2022 at 60. David Crow was a graphic designer and a design educator, and Visible Signs is written in a designer-centric way. As a book, it remains an excellent general overview on semiotics. Semiosis 101 follows Crow's lead, but solely on Peircean semiotic theory. Moving on, the third semiotic book I have found useful is Semiotics, The Basics by Daniel Chandler. This book is a general reader on the main semiotic theories. Unlike the previous 2 books that used images to explain how semiotics functions, Chandler's book is a monograph not directly aimed at creatives in design practice. It is still an excellent book in which to go deeper in your reading into several semiotic theories. Chandler does discuss Peircean semiotic theory, so it is best to consult the index first. What I found priceless was Chandler explained Peirce's sign action semiosis using Michael Munday's excellent box metaphor. In Semiosis 101 Season 1, I've made 2 videos on this. Check back to Season 1 Video 4, the Semiosis box of tricks, and the second bonus video, Box Clever episodes. Now we progress from general books on semiotics to 2 books on Charles Sanders Peirce and his pragmatic semiotic theory of sign action, semiosis. The next book is Peirce, A Guide for the Perplexed by Cornelis de Waal. This book is a great book. The title says it all. To understand why semiosis is a pragmatic semiotic theory, it pays to explore Peirce's underpinning philosophical thinking. Charles Sanders Peirce was one of the 3 founders of the American philosophy of pragmatism, together with John Dewey and William James. Pragmatism basically evaluates theories or beliefs in terms of the success of their practical application. It is in this practical sense that semiosis has a direct benefit to visual communication design. While still a philosophical book, it does help non-semioticians and non-philosophers to get to grips with Peirce. Finally, we arrive at the most important book I found to begin to understand Peirce's writings. Introduction to Peircean Visual Semiotics by Tony Jaffe is a well-written companion to Peirce's own collected writings. This incredibly important book was crucial to my understanding of Peirce during my part-time PhD study between 2008 and 2016. Professor Jaffe explains Peircean semiotic theory in a more agreeable way to non-semioticians. His book is still a philosophical book, but it is a great interface between Peirce and non-academic readers. The book covers a vast array of Peirce's scattered writings on semiotics, and at the time of reading this book, I was research reading Peirce's collected writing. I was used Jaffe's book as my own Rosetta Stone to decipher Peirce. Professor Jaffe is aware of my semiotic Rosetta Stone research and has kindly referred other design academics to me. What we gain from each of these 5 books is a partial insight into semiotic theory, what it is, how it works, and how it can be decoded. But when we get to the companion books on Peirce and his theories, we get an awareness of the power of encoding sign action much earlier in the ideation phase of visual communicating. We as designers and illustrators need to embrace semiosis more to craft and enhance how we can effectively visually communicate with our intended target audiences. So we need a designer-centric explanation of how to apply semiosis when crafting the visual languages we utilize in answering our clients' briefs. We need to have a focus in the semiotic literature on how to encode semiotic sign to hook and communicate with our audiences, beginning at Peirce's iconic level of semiotic representation. As creators, our designs and illustrations are not just aesthetic. They are crafted to have impact, to answer design problems, to convey information to and for the intended target audience. Professor Jorge Pescara advocates in society that what we do with visual communication outcomes is to facilitate behavioural changes in the audience. Peirce's determination flow in his sign action between the concept, its representation and interpretation is pivotal for creatives. The client's brief contains the concepts to be visually communicated. The designer or illustrator crafts the visual language to connect with the audience, selecting appropriate representation. But Peirce's coup de grace is including the audience in the sign action, the visual interpreters in the practical application. This has become the central purpose of Semiosis 101, how applying semiosis proactively impacts visual communication. So to end this 4th season 2 video, we can conclude several things from the current semiotic literature. Firstly, the positive impacts of semiotic theory through effective application within visual communication design needs to be accommodated more in future semiotic books. Secondly, this needs to be written in a designer-centric ways, using language that is accessible to designers and illustrators rather than obtuse terminology. This needs to be sensibly done, as I'm not advocating any dumbing down of Peirce's theory, just an opening up of how to apply it to aid creatives visually encode meaning to hook and connect to the intended target audiences. Semiosis 101 on YouTube is beginning that new semiotic openness. Come back next week as the next Semiosis 101 episode concludes the dispelling of confusion to what semiotic signs are. I'm Dave Wood, a design educator and researcher, a published design author, and have worked commercially as both a freelance illustrator and graphic designer. The guy behind the theory, Charles Sanders Peirce, was a philosopher, a mathematician, and a theorist, but he wasn't a creative. Each week on this Scout Scott Semiosis 101 YouTube channel, I'll post at least one 10-minute explainer video on an aspect of Peirce's pragmatic semiotic theory. Each video will feature a take-home piece of applicable semiotic theory, and they do interconnect to build up your understanding of semiosis. Each free Semiosis 101 10-minute video will use designer-centric terms instead of theoretical language so that illustrators and graphic designers can understand and follow. As a fellow creative and a published design author, I have a link in the description to my Scout Scott website. If you are interested in reading my semiotic Rosetta Stone academic writing, then you can visit my academia.edu link in the description. Any other books on Peircean semiotics or design I've mentioned in the videos are also listed in the description. Check them out too. Thanks for watching. Check out the other videos, like and share them with your friends, and hit the bell and subscribe buttons to be notified when next week's video is published. You can also follow Semiosis 101 on the socials for updates. It's Scout_Scott on Instagram and Semiosis 101 on Twitter. See you all again next week for more Semiosis 101 to help illustrators and designers to enhance your visual communication skills.